Welcome to the Hallmark After Show 2020 podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Will Carey. Joining me is my co-host and wife, Chelsea Connor. Hello, dear. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. You are looking spectacular this evening, as you always do.
Thank you. For our listeners who can't see me, I am literally wrapped up in a corgi Christmas blanket because it's freezing in our apartment.
Yes. Well, this room, until the building turns the heat on, is always a little chilly, and you so thoughtfully back in over the summer got us Christmas-themed blankets
from Christmas in July on QVC.
Yeah, exactly.
We
and
could
now
host
we are
an entire show about my love of QVC.
Oh, it's and I just love the story behind your love for QVC, which is one for a different podcast. But I your love of QVC, like we watch QVC like to fall asleep at night, and
yeah,
it.
Thanks, Jeff Bezos.
And I gotta say this. Really excited to talk about our film today because this is
yes,
up
we
there
have to
for me.
refocus.
Yeah, because this our film today is one of my favorites so far of the season.
Oh, but does it beat Jingle Bell Bride?
I mean,
keep listening and you'll find out.
I mean, it's hard for anything to beat Jingle Bell Bride because Jingle Bell Bride was so good, but this definitely is pretty close up there. Our film today, I believe this is our 8th premiere of the season.
16 hours of our lives come and gone.
So much, but any time spent with you, dear, is time well spent. Our film tonight is
way to suck up right before Christmas.
Exactly. I would tell you that at any time of the year, dear.
I know.
So our film today is called A Timeless Christmas. It stars the main actors are Ryan, I believe the last name is Pavey, Paevey, who you might recognize from General Hospital for playing Nathan West.
Should that be more specific? Oh, it's a callback, folks. Call to Will's first jokes.
Call back to one of my early jokes, and then also we also have in the cast Erin Cahill, who plays Megan Turner, who you might have seen from Power Rangers Time Force and the TV series version of Sleepy Hollow.
And to be clear, not like Megan Trainor.
Yeah, different Megan. And my favorite bit of trivia is that the director of this movie, Ron Oliver, previously directed episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark in the 90s, which I didn't only sparingly watch because it was too scary for me as a kid. And
of course.
And the TV series Goosebumps, also from the 90s. So very interesting. I think a very interesting cast. And I think I'm going to say right off the top, dear, I don't know if you'll agree with me, but we can get into it. This is, as far as like plot goes, I feel like this is the most interesting of the series because we have Charles Whitley, a man who travels from 1903 to 2020, where he meets Megan Turner and experiences a 21st century Christmas. So one of my favorite concepts to think about and pontificate on time travel. We have a man born in the late 1800s. He is an adult in the early 1900s, and he finds himself transported into modern day. I love stuff like this.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. I love like About Time and all those other time travel-y movies. The Time Traveler's Wife. There was like a weird movie, not The Time Traveler's Wife, where but the same story, and it'll
Lake
come
House?
to me later. No, well, yes, but no, that's not the one I was thinking of. But there's a lot of these types of movies, and I do enjoy them because time travel and love is great.
It most certainly is.
Brings joy and whimsy.
One of my favorite movies, the anime Your Name, deals heavily with time travel, but I especially love like fish out of water time travel. Like you have someone from before cars were invented, before flying. He doesn't even know what pizza is, and you find someone discovering the joys of stuff that you would take for granted in the modern era for the first time. And to someone from the early 19th century, so much of the stuff we take for granted is an absolute miracle, and it's very fun to watch.
Yeah, like cars and light bulbs. Like those are the two main ones.
Cars, light bulbs.
Usually elevators mystify people. If you ever seen Kate and Leopold, that's like a big central fixture of that movie.
Mhm.
um,
And Charles Whitley, he is the I'm gonna say he's like a business in the 1900s. He's an inventor.
or what we would call today, ladies and gentlemen, the entrepreneur.
Yeah, like if he was born today, he'd like be like developing an app or some
Yeah.
like he'd have like a startup with like a lot of free juice and soda.
A startup named Banana or something like that.
Yeah, I do have, and then he finds himself transported via a magical clock to
Yes.
2020, and we are
But-
in upstate New York.
Okay, but if I mean, I do want to whiz through this plot because we found on these episodes that it's really boring for us to just go through the plot. But one thing I just want to step back. So there's this moment when we're in 1903 where he's in like the parlor with his fiance, and the housekeeper has like cheerfully come in with 2 cups of hot cocoa because she thinks like
Mhm.
it's the holidays and I'm going to spread joy. And so when his fiance like declines rather abruptly, she just is still standing there with the hot cocoa, and it really bothered me because like I don't know, wouldn't you just say like, oh no thank you but thank you, or wouldn't you just say like sure and get rid of the housekeeper? Like I but
Well,
she just stands there.
Well, especially this fiance is like, I'm not very much in a hot chocolate mood today.
Yeah, like it's not like no thanks, it's just like fuck you.
Well, we
I
also
don't like hot chocolate, I'm trying to be skinny for my wedding. Like that's sort of the attitude you get.
Right. Well, the other thing I noticed for that scene is because you realize very early on that the fiance's in 1903, his name is Eliza, and you and Charles, you learn clearly on that there's some issues there. And when Eliza says, "You're not with me here," I know she means her heart, but she points like directly between her boobs, and that is very noticeable.
I don't think she means her heart. I think she means like in this holiday moment.
I mean, that's
You know, like
probably
I
that.
normally am during the holidays, where I'm just like running around getting all the gifts and packing shit in IKEA bags for us to get down to Maryland,
right,
and not enjoying the holiday.
You
Like
know,
I think
just a
she
lot of
wanted him to be
last-minute
like
stuff.
present so that they could enjoy the hot chocolate. But
Well,
they
this was
don't.
before the hot chocolate, but then you realize that the house
idea of the hot chocolate,
right, the hot chocolate becomes a representation for being in the moment. And the housekeeper, like you learn also that she and Mr. Whitley have a much deeper relationship. Not in like a romantic way, just in like she could say, you know what, Charles, I'm going to tell you how I really think, and you're not going to slap me around.
Yeah, she's
Kinda.
like, I'm sure a lot of you people used to work in offices. Do you remember what those were like? And there would be
What a time! What
like
a
a
time!
receptionist who's been with whatever company or organization you've worked for like 50 years. And it's like, you don't mess with her. You know, like she's the one you bring the chocolates to. And she's the one who's like, your lunch break is 60 minutes. And when you take 65, she's like the first one to call you on it.
Yeah, she will cut you.
She's kind of like that person, you know?
Exactly. And then then I love the present day setup for this because he's still in his same mansion, but it is now a historical landmark where
Right, so he
actors
wakes
give
up,
guided
yeah.
tours.
He wakes up in his house, but it's 2020.
Yeah, and I will have to say, if this was as we were watching this, because he wakes up 100 years in the future, and he's having clear of you're not, and he's talking to actors who are playing the part of people he actually knew.
It's actually 117 years in the future.
117 years. You
just
are
to be
you are
clear.
correct. Thank you. And when he's going through none of this is right. What? And he's very naturally thinking, well, why are you people in my house? He doesn't freak out at smartphones or riding in cars, but in my head, I was playing a much different version of this movie. Like if this was not a Hallmark movie, because the actors and actresses who are playing the housekeeping staff are not white, but the housekeeping staff in 1903 in this upstate New York mansion was all white. So I was playing I was imagining like a version where Charles Woodley has a lot more like old timey racial slurs coming out of his mouth.
I have to say that is definitely something that bothered me. Not the racial slurs, but something that bothered me about.
You wanted more racial slurs.
No. Let me be clear. Something that bothered me about this movie though is that like in the 1903 times, like the accents aren't quite right or like proper. Like the words they use are wrong. but it makes him more adaptable in when he reaches 2020. So that sort of makes sense. Like there's less of that weird language issues that like we saw in a Kate and Leopold type of movie.
Sure, like certain words that were not part of the vernacular at the time that he
Right.
suddenly knows now.
Right. But the thing that I think is really funny, and we're going to whiz through this plot, guys, I promise. But when he wakes up in his office, like all of his stuff is under like a plexiglass cover and it's like, don't touch. And that, I think like that's really funny because, I think when you wake up in the future, like how do you note that the house is in the future, but to do something like that in that room? Because when he wakes up, there's no people in there. So there's no like an immediate, he does see a security camera, which is kind of cool. Like he sort of is like, what is that?
Right.
But I just think it's really funny that like the reason he realizes that he's not where he thinks he is the plexiglass.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first thing. And then there's a little sign that says,
Don't touch.
do not touch. And our lead actress, very coincidentally, is a distant relative of the housekeeper who is able to give Mr. Whitley her honest opinion on things, which is a fun little circular bit of business.
And spoiler, they fall in love.
I mean, you would expect
Which,
them.
Like,
Expect them
I'll
to.
say I think there were hints of that with him and the housekeeper in 1903 too. Like it was
Yes.
kind of unwritten because she clearly is older than him in that portion of the movie, but like you could sort of tell that she like longs for the master of the house.
Well, because she's like, do you really love Eliza? I don't want you to make a mistake. And then the thing I love the most, so clearly, so as you might imagine, she, our lead actress, she gets with it pretty quickly that he is actually from the past. But what I love the most is that they
go to the popo.
Well, not just that. What I love the most is like he integrates into modern day society by pretending to be an actor and playing himself in this like guided theatrical tour of this mansion. Like he's coming as like, oh, hello, I am Charles Wayne. And he's talking because I just find that really funny for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great out for him, right? I feel like in all the other time travel movies, the like love of their life is constantly trying to like hide their time traveliness in like unclever ways, right? Like I think Leopold ends up working at like a burger joint or something. Like it doesn't make sense, But this one is just like, oh, you're just gonna play yourself. Cool.
Yeah, and all you have to do is talk about your house and answer questions, and we get hints of something that comes into play later on. But I really enjoy. First off, I love that once we get through all the confusion, he really does like, oh, this is exciting. This is exciting. And the other cool thing, because Hallmark is woke now.
Hallmark woke people.
Like, but this is like
Sheriff's black, by the way, in this movie.
We have a black sheriff, and then we have like a man learning things of like, oh, women can pay for dinner, and it's not it's not
be
scandalous.
Alone with a woman in a room, and it's not scandalous.
Exactly. You should you should tell the soon to be former vice president that.
I was gonna say, if my grandmother is watching this, it might be a little more, I don't know, but you get the idea, folks. That he's learning that women have opinions.
Exactly. Well, he's also learning that like women can do things for themselves, and our main actress, I find their chemistry not right up there with Jingle Bell Bride. I find the chemistry between these two to be quite enjoyable.
Yeah, it's adorable. It's not like a weird setup where one of them is like super cold and sullen. Like they're both kind of into it, which is kind of nice. You know?
And
I believe it. I buy it.
Oh no, I buy it. I buy it too. And he's like learning about how things played out because he just like disappears, and he's learning about what happened to this life he had built for himself after he disappeared.
Yeah, it basically disintegrates into thin air, and Eliza like marries his competitor, which makes perfect sense,
Yes.
Because women of that time, you gotta remarry, like within days.
Yeah, and she spent fortunes trying to, but apparently she waited like a long time, and that was one of the other swerves that I think this movie gives to the traditional Hallmark formula, outside of like a woman not. We first off, we don't have a woman stifling her ambitions and career aspirations for a man.
Correct.
We don't have that.
Well, kind of.
Well, I want you to get into that in a second. But
Okay, but
the
let's
other thing,
pretend. Keep going.
but the other thing we have is our hero realizes his flaws. Like he has this whole moment after he realizes that his competitor married his fiance, and it wasn't a bad thing that happened. It was her life was actually pretty great, and they went on and they did and they went on and did great things and helped a lot of people.
Yeah, that was nice. I think we're still like going on the premise that like women are property and she needed to like marry in order to be taken care of, which is like, I disagree with the premise, but I agree that like, yes, it's nice that he didn't marry her because he's a workaholic and she got to live with someone who is like slightly less of a workaholic.
Well, she got to like presumably, or I guess the whole idea is that she gets to have love that he would have never been able to get her.
Correct, correct.
But you are correct. But then also this woman was alive in the early 1900s when that was kind of the case, wasn't
Right.
it?
So that's sort of like, yeah. So that's what I was saying. Like, I disagree on the premise. But the other part of this, too, is that, you know, unlike our, normally our woman protagonist is trying to, like, go after some career goal or something. In this, it seems that our female protagonist is, like, torn between, she runs the museum, right, which is this mansion, and she's up for a job at a university, I guess, to be a professor. They're not really clear on what the job is,
Yeah.
but she declines that job to stay and continue managing this museum, which is arguably probably less salary prospects and just
But
a
it's her
lower,
passion.
but it's her passion. So it's like she does it, I presume, to continue to stay close to Charles, who then also decides not, I guess we'll just get there. Spoiler alert, decides not to travel back to 1903 and ruin his whole life and stay in the present,
Yep.
and run the museum with her, basically.
Well, that's kind of the idea that
He does
might happen.
propose reinventing the cell phone, though,
Yeah, he wants to reinvent the cell phone. He wants to make
and fix the computing machine.
he wants to make computers better. But then they decide to take it. They say like one day at a time. But you are correct. We have our main actor, our lead actress, following her passion instead of because
Career,
her
yeah.
parents are teachers. And so they want her to be a teacher, but she doesn't really want to be a teacher. So
Yeah.
that's what I picked
That's
up
all
on.
I ever wanted for my life was my parents to like want something for me.
Oh yeah,
Well, I think they really like wanted me to just find my own way, and I think, I don't know, unlike my brother, who I think it was pretty like clear from the onset that he would be a lawyer because they were lawyers, like
Mm-hmm.
that pressure wasn't quite put on me. And so but I always wonder, like, would I have made a good attorney if my parents had just dictated what I did with my life, or would I have become like, I don't know, an interpretive dancer because the pressure was just too great? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like I would have. There's definitely a darkest timeline where I didn't discover my passion for the arts, and I was just this like shut-in gamer kid who had like a retail job.
Folks, you can't see this, but you just totally did the like Hamilton to be or to not
Yeah,
to be
I did.
gesture.
I did the
To
gesture
suffer
you
the
make.
slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. There's other words to that.
Well, I mean, because before I did theater and I started doing theater and playing music and playing guitar the same year, there was not anything I was excited about. I was not excited about after school activities. I was not excited about soccer practice on weekends. I just
Yeah.
wasn't into it. All I wanted to do was just get home from school and sit in my room alone.
But I think as our female protagonist finds, she has a name, right? What's her name?
Well,
Sorry, I just keep
well,
saying
you
the
called her
protagonist.
well, you called her Megan Trainor earlier, but Megan
No,
Turner.
Megan Turner.
Megan Turner is her name.
No, is that her name in the movie though?
That's her character's name. The
Oh,
actress's
Megan
name.
Turner. Okay.
The actress's name is Erin Cahill.
Okay, Megan and Charles. Oh, get it, guys? Like Megan and Harry. It's all okay. Full circle. Anyway, totally lost my train of thought. I don't remember what I was gonna say. Oh, had Megan not been pushed by her parents to go and like try out for this job to be a professor because they were, she wouldn't have discovered her true passion. So I just always wonder if my parents had like pressured me to be a doctor, would I have found my true passion as an interpretive dancer? I'm really stuck on this, that I would have been a great interpretive
you would've-
dancer.
You wouldn't not have been in the arts, but you would have been in such a niche slice of the arts.
Like very specific.
Yeah. Like I
Or
imagine,
like, as I've come to find this week, a passion for baking black and white cookies because they're my favorite cookie in the world, guys. And
yes.
don't,
Oh my gosh.
you've had bad deli versions, but don't let that turn your frown upside down. Try the Barefoot Contessa's with my like super tweaks. It's on my Facebook page. You can find it because I can't do any recipe the way it's written. I have to
you
meddle.
you really can't.
I really can't. I always have to meddle.
I mean, it's
no, that's wrong. I'm doing this. But my super awesome tweaks to Ina's recipe include adding some almond extract and a few other things. But
well, the almond extract it adds a nice sweetness to
and
it.
some
But
cocoa powder.
I think your cookbook should just be you criticizing other recipes.
Chelsea Connor, a critique.
Yeah.
Critiques your cooking.
Yeah, like a actually.
And
your
so, but
cooking.
that's my point. Had my parents pressured me to become a surgeon or I don't know, whatever else, a seltzer maker, whatever they wanted me to be, then I would have found my true passion, which was criticizing cookbooks.
But I mean, you got there anyway. My dad, if I.
But I'm not a professional cookbook criticizer.
Well, not yet.
Do you hear that, New York Times or any other outlet? Do you need someone to criticize cookbooks? Like, not review them. Let me be clear. Criticize them.
Mm-hmm. Well, isn't that what critics do? I mean, I
No.
sort of.
Critics rave over the perfectly sliced and cooked filet mignon, over the quiche and the blah, 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 blah.
Not the New York Times restaurant critics. I've seen a bunch of videos with like current and former New York Times restaurant critics, and I find a great deal of them. Like, I would not want to have dinner with any of them. Like, they're criticizing, saying like, I don't like the word yummy. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I bet your grandchildren don't call you very often.
Oh, that's so sad. In my favorite restaurant critic moment in any movie ever is in My Best Friend's Wedding. For folks who've seen that movie, fantastic. But Julia Roberts, like, her day job is to be a food critic. Like, that's what she does. And they like sort of mock her as being the food critic. But the opening scene, she's describing a dish, and it's clear that the like restaurant chefs are like waiting in the back, and she sort of like, I guess loudly enough for the waiter to hear, to like report back, says, I find it inventive and all these other things. But the word inventive just really sticks with me. And so I that's how I would like to describe food as a food critic. To be like, your recipe was inventive, but it's wrong.
Right. Well,
Sorry, we've gotten really off track, folks.
But I think our tangents are what bring the show its charm. I like the Jonathan Gold school of food criticism because he seems like he genuinely enjoyed food. He sadly passed away a few years ago, but there's a great documentary about him on Amazon Prime, I think. And he just gets really excited about food. And like, he did this whole project where he ate at every restaurant along this really long street in downtown Los Angeles. And the people whose restaurants he raved about and really enjoyed, because he was not writing about the hip places you would expect food critics to write about. But it would like change their lives. But then I also imagine the dark side of writing a rave review and really helping a business's livelihood is, if you write a bad review, you could ruin someone's livelihood. And that seems
right,
like
which is why I'm only going to market myself as the critic
of other people's
other people's recipes.
Yeah, no, the New York Times should hire you to criticize itself.
Exactly.
I
and
like
then
this.
I'll rewrite them just slightly different.
The other great part about this movie I like is, as we mentioned, there are some other cast members, other actors that are part of this guided tour that takes place at the Whitney, not the Whitley,
The Whitley.
the Whitley Museum, and their names are Amber and Dan. They're a married couple
and they're really tan.
Well, yes, which there's no way you could get that tan in upstate New York that time
Right,
of year.
like they're clearly white, but they are also like,
I don't
they
think
clearly
so.
no, they are, and they clearly have been like in tanning beds, or I don't know what it is. Like the theatrical makeup is just caked on in a way that seems inappropriate.
Possibly.
I don't know. It just seems weird.
But their whole thing is like, they want to be on Broadway. They're actors and they want bigger things, which I can kind of relate to as an
Okay, but how do you end up in upstate New York?
well, you answered the ad. You're on backstage in Craigslist trying to find the next job, and
And
you're
you're
in the
like,
city.
I'll move to upstate New York to play a dead guy's fiance and butler.
Pretty much. That's pretty much
That's
how it
how it
goes.
works.
I think so. And
Wow.
and so and Dan clearly, Dan's like, I don't really like where I'm at, and she doesn't really like where she's at either, but she's making the best of it. And Charles, like, he gives them both sage advice at different times, and they kind of come to a renewed sense of who they are and who they're with, and then they get. But it works out for them, folks. They get cast in
Taming of the Shrew.
which is funny because throughout the
Because
movie,
it's Shakespeare.
and throughout the whole movie,
Shakespeare.
he keeps saying that the script they do on the tour is not Shakespeare.
But this is actually Shakespeare. Get it? Ha 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 ha.
So
Also, kind of perfect for her to play the shrew. By the way, just saying.
I agree.
She's a little shrill.
So now that we know that Charles is, so Charles stays, and we get 2 kisses on the Hallmark kiss count.
Double kiss on the kiss counter. We're gonna come up with a jingle for that.
I genuinely want to
Yeah,
know.
like a triangle or something.
Ding. I genuinely want to know, like, what do you think he goes and does? Do you think he keeps acting as himself in this tour of his
Well-
former mansion, or what is the startup you think he starts?
I mean, I'm unclear like what the town's industry remains as. He was like a steel mill guy, and it's clear
Right.
that the steel mill gone.
Steel mill gone. Now it's just a quaint town.
Right. So I'm not really clear, like, other than working at the university that's there, which, thanks, SUNY, for being in every quaint town in New York. But also, she's going to run this museum, right? And I can't imagine that that's, like, a ton of money for, like, salary-wise. But I don't know. Maybe it's substantial.
I don't know.
But,
Maybe she moves up.
Yeah, maybe she moves up. Well, no, she's the director. She's, like, in charge of it.
Well, they had the best year of fundraising, so
Yeah. For
maybe things are going well
house.
there.
But anyway, yeah, so I have no idea what are even his options, but like I think it's hilarious that he's gonna like redo the cell phone. It's like in my mind he comes up with like some cool like hologram cell phone. She does say to her folks, I think, that she has like inventive plans for this museum, including like hologram peoples from the past, so like taking away jobs, which seems to be like a nice Jeff Bezos full circle move for this movie. But like, so maybe he helps her with the technology for the exhibits, but like I'm gonna just throw this out here that like time has passed and inventions have been made, and it's not like he's gonna then suddenly know how the computer works, right? Like he's
But he
got to
could-
catch up.
Right. I mean,
'Cause,
he
like,
could
the
probably
world
figure
caught
it
up.
out.
Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, that's the future I've projected in the Hallmark things tend to work out kind of way. Like if you're an inventor, you I feel like you just like, okay, this does that. I'm going to figure out how it does that. Cuz his whole invention, which I think I don't know if it gets stolen or maybe his rival just has a better version of, is like a mill. It's like an improvement for a mill system.
Yeah, because it's 1903. That's my point, though. Is like, okay, so you've literally invented the wheel, bravo, and now you're going to take on Apple and build a new computer, buddy. Ain't happening.
Well, it's much better than
Even
getting
in Kate and Leopold, he enjoys the Otis elevator, right? Which we all enjoy to this day. The Otis elevator is the standard.
Yep.
And that's great and cute and all, but it doesn't mean that the elevator dude is going to build a new computer.
I mean, I think it's a better thought than thinking about him getting into the steel
Maybe he
industry of
can
2020.
fix the steel mills. I don't know, like what?
Oh, maybe he figures out trade tariffs and trade deficits. Maybe he becomes
takes on NAFTA.
well, yeah. Maybe maybe he becomes part of like foreign relations and he fixes all trade, and then everybody trades
Or
at the same
I'll
low
do
price.
you one better, Mr. Carey. Maybe he realizes the error of his ways of forcing his staff to work all the time and do backbreaking work and never take vacation or time off and wear inappropriately formal clothing to work in a steel mill, and he decides to join the United Steelworkers Association, and
I see.
he becomes like president of the Steelworkers Union.
I think
And he's
that
like,
is a great
dungarees are
idea.
cool.
That is a spectacular idea. He institutes a week-long casual dress code, and he fights for the rights of working people. I like where your head's at.
I mean, but that's what I do for a living. So, but I will say, so like, there's this funny comment where she dresses him in like modern clothes,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, these wouldn't even be barely permitted to work in the steel mill. Like, you need to wear a collared shirt and all that stuff. And it's funny because we recently had a big fight with, I won't name the company, but a manufacturing company that my union represents, where on the table for debate was the type of jeans that you could wear. And the issue actually on the table was a safety one, in fairness. And most modern day jeans, as women know, but men are now becoming to know, have a little bit of Lycra in them, which give that stretch, the nice stretch that you enjoy of your new jeans. Will.
Yeah. Love that stretch.
And that's more highly flammable than cotton. And so they were requiring cotton only denim and any kind of pant. And all your clothing had to be 100% cotton. And so it was a big, big fight over like, you can't buy cotton pants anymore.
Wow.
Like it's really, really hard to find. Like there's the Carhartt brand, which makes them, and there's some construction companies. Those are really expensive. Whereas like if you go to Old Navy today, almost none of their clothes are 100% cotton.
Fascinating.
So that was just an aside, but it was just funny when he's talking about how like they have to wear a certain type of attire for the steel mill work.
Fascinating.
He calls it dungarees.
Yes. Which would have been fine in the steel mill, but you couldn't just wear them out and about in the town square. And then
he says barely fine for the steel mill.
And a reoccurring theme is Megan continuously saying times have changed.
Well, but that's because that's what Rosie says at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's full circle.
I like this. Where do you rank this film,
Ooh,
sweetie?
Jingle Bell Ride still top on the charts for me.
Yep.
But I would give this a solid 4.
Yeah?
Yeah, I thought it was inventive and just like the food.
Right.
No, I thought it was like nice to have just a totally different plot than we're used to. I mean, there were all the trappings of a great Hallmark movie, a, Christmas party that culminated in all of the events like they always do.
Indeed.
Cute sidekicks, trimmings everywhere, a Christmas fair. No chestnut cart though.
Nope, no chestnut cart. And coincidentally, our actor who finally attends his own Christmas party, because when he was in the early 1900s,
he was too busy.
He's too busy working to go to his own Christmas party. And then he attends his Christmas party in 2020 as himself. But
you missed the air quotes.
Missing the air quotes. He's playing himself, but
yes.
He's himself, and he gives the speech he would have given had he realized all of the important things, all of the things that are truly important. And he learns to live in the moment. And then Megan goes on to have many future smooches with a time traveling suave entrepreneur inventor.
Yeah, and this time the one who decides to change his life entirely is the dude, which was progressive. But I think as far as like the traditional Hallmark movies go, this one was very different than the others we've seen this season. A little bit more for those. So I realize we have some listeners who aren't watching just the Hallmark Countdown to Christmas, but there's also the Hallmark Christmas Mysteries and Miracles series, which also has premieres this year. And I will say that this movie felt like it belonged more on that roster of movies, but it was a welcome reprieve from what we anticipate ahead, which includes things like Nashville Christmas and all kinds of crazy things.
Yes,
are about to come our way at Hallmark premieres.
Oh yes, I can feel your PTSD already talking about Nashville Christmas. Although, actual Nashville, you had a very lovely time.
Yes, Nashville is a fantastic city. It has amazing Indian food, specifically, but also lots of other cool things about it.
Lots of live
but I just
music,
think like
cool.
TV version of Nashville will be a little bit more extra.
A little more country music television, I imagine. I would rank this very highly as well. I'd give it a 4.4. So not quite.
Okay, I don't know that.
Not quite
I'm
Jingle Bell Ride.
allow.
Well, it's not, to me, it didn't quite hit Jingle Bell Bride levels, but it was very close. It was probably my second favorite now, my new second
I
favorite.
didn't realize we were getting like that, like to the 10th of the point of the category. Like that feels fake, guys. I'm gonna call him on that. I'm gonna let you go as close as specific as a quarter. So are you saying 4.25?
Sure.
4.25?
Sure, why not?
Well, I just feel like a 10th of a point is just like not fair.
Well, you know what I mean. It was
Because then
again.
we're gonna get like really into debating like the rankings.
Well, we don't have to because this is just the sort of joy and witty back and forth that the listeners of the show have come to enjoy.
You all love this, don't you? And I know you do because you're gonna follow us on the Instagram and the Twitter and the Facebook.
Yes, you follow us on all social media platforms. We are available everywhere you get your podcast. I want to let you guys know if you want to find ways that you can, if you are looking to support the show, if you can go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review and a ranking, that helps other people find the show in the algorithm. So if you could do that, we would sincerely appreciate it. And you can follow me on Twitter at Comic Will Carey, and Chelsea's on Twitter at Chelsea Connor.
Yes, and because we started the show with how I was dressed, I want to know how all of you dressed to watch your holiday movies.
Yes, let us know.
And so this week we're running, it's not really a contest, but it's a competition for best Christmas dress.
Ooh.
And if you win by my arbitrary decision-making powers as the co-host of this podcast, you will get something very special in the mail.
Ooh, very exciting. You're gonna dig it.
Yeah. So post your photos, nothing inappropriate, nothing NSFW, nothing that Facebook would block us from. Although after Trump, I mean, gosh, they won't block anything, will they?
They just don't.
But show us your festive
anything.
Christmas best or Hanukkah best too.
Yeah.
We will get to that Hanukkah movie. It's coming way late in the season, well after Hanukkah, unfortunately. But
I can't wait for that one. That one's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. I mean, every year they do one, and it's just to hear the like inappropriate pronunciations.
Sure, yeah.
Of Chanukaka.
Yeah. There's actually a Hanukkah. There's actually a Hanukkah song called "How Do You Spell Hanukkah?"
Yeah, I'm. Well, when we get to that episode, I'm gonna poll on our social media and ask you how you spell Hanukkah. Because I subscribe to the H, guys, and one N.
Subscribe to the H and one N, and you can subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and
like us and favorite us and love us and show us that we matter to you.
Yes, and thank you guys so much for being here, and we will see you again soon.
Yeah, next week. Woo!
Woo!
La 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 la. Doom ba 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 doom 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 doom. La.
Bye, everybody.
La.